Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Earth Defense Station New Horizon, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. Something felt wrong. For 3 weeks, strange energy readings had been coming from the outer rim of human space. The readings made no sense. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts in the dark. "Captain, I'm getting another signal," said Communications Officer Lisa Stone from her station. She turned to face him, her face pale with worry. "It's from Colony 7 on Kepler, 442b. They're asking for immediate help." Jake walked over to her console. "What kind of help?" "I don't know, sir." The signal cut out after 5 seconds, just like all the others. Lisa pressed buttons on her screen, trying to reconnect. "Sir, that makes 12 colonies that have gone silent in the past month." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. 12 colonies. Over 2 million people. All gone quiet without explanation. He had reported this to Galactic Command 3 times. Each time, they told him to stop worrying about nothing. "Try Colony 7 again," Jake ordered. Lisa worked at her station for several minutes. Finally, she shook her head. "Nothing, sir. Complete silence." On the other side of the bridge, Dr. Amy Ross was studying data on her portable computer. She was Earth's top expert on alien life forms. The Galactic Council had sent her to study the colony disappearances, but they didn't seem to care about her findings. "Captain Morrison," Dr. Ross called out, "I need to show you something important." Jake walked over to her. Dr. Ross was a small woman with short brown hair and intelligent eyes. She had been studying the missing colonies for weeks. "Look at this map," she said, showing him her screen. "See these red dots? Each one is a missing colony. Notice anything strange?" Jake studied the map. The red dots formed a rough circle around an area of space that looked empty. "They're all near that dark region." "Exactly. That area has ancient star formations. Some of those stars died billions of years ago. But there's more." Dr. Ross touched her screen, bringing up new data. "I found similar patterns in old Galactic Council records. Other species had colonies disappear near ancient star systems, too. But it was so long ago that everyone forgot." "How long ago?" Jake asked. 3 million years. Maybe more." Jake stared at the data. 3 million years. What could sleep for 3 million years and then wake up hungry? "I tried to warn the Galactic Council," Dr. Ross continued. "They said humans don't have enough experience to understand space phenomena. They told me to stop making problems." Before Jake could respond, Lisa Stone called out urgently, "Captain, I'm picking up a distress beacon. It's from the Montana." Jake's blood went cold. The Montana was a colony ship that had disappeared 6 months ago with 8,000 people on board. "Where?" "Sector 7 Alpha. It's drifting toward our position." "Prepare a rescue shuttle," Jake ordered. "Dr. Ross, you're with me?" 2 hours later, Jake and Dr. Ross floated through the empty corridors of the Montana. The ship was intact, but it felt wrong. The lights worked, the air was breathable, but there were no people, no bodies, no signs of struggle, just empty rooms and silence. "This doesn't make sense," Dr. Ross whispered. "Where is everyone?" They found him in engineering. Chris Davis sat in the corner of a storage room, rocking back and forth. He was alive, but barely aware of his surroundings. His eyes were wide with terror, and he kept whispering the same words over and over. "Chris," Jake said gently, kneeling beside the frightened man. "Chris, can you hear me? What happened to the Montana?" Chris looked at Jake with wild eyes. "They're coming back," he whispered. "The old ones are coming back. We woke them up. We woke them up with our noise and our lights and our life." "Who's coming back?" Dr. Ross asked softly. "The hungry ones. The dark ones. They've been sleeping so long, but we woke them up." Chris grabbed Jake's arm with surprising strength. "They took everyone, absorbed them, fed on them, but they let me live to watch, to remember, to warn. Chris, what do these things look like?" "Not like anything in the databases. Old, so old, made of metal and flesh and something else. Something dark. They move like liquid shadow and they eat everything. Energy, matter, life, thoughts, dreams. Chris started rocking again. They're coming back. Following the life signals. Following the warmth. Coming to feed. Jake and Dr. Ross exchanged worried looks. They helped Chris to the medical bay and gave him something to calm down. During the flight back to New Horizon, Dr. Ross studied her readings from the Montana. "Jake, look at this," she said, showing him her scanner results. "The ship's energy readings are all wrong. Something drained the main power core, but not in any way our technology could do. It's like something reached inside and sucked out the energy without touching the physical systems." Back on New Horizon, Jake immediately sent a priority message to Galactic Command. He included Dr. Ross's research, Chris Davis's testimony, and the energy readings from the Montana. He marked it as urgent and requested immediate military support for all remaining human colonies. The response came back 6 hours later. Admiral Kextar, the Zephyrian fleet, sent a short message. "Captain Morrison, stop creating panic with your primitive human fears. The galaxy is safe under Galactic Command protection. Focus on your assigned duties and leave space security to superior species." Jake stared at the message in anger. Superior species. The aliens always said that. Humans were too young, too inexperienced, too emotional to understand the galaxy. But Jake had been in space for 15 years. He had seen things that would terrify most aliens. "Sir," Lisa Stone called from her station. "I'm getting reports from 3 more colonies. They're all reporting strange energy readings just before losing contact." Jake made a decision that would change everything. He opened a secure channel to Earth Military Command. General Paul Carter answered within minutes. "Jake, what's the situation out there?" General Carter asked. He was a tough old soldier who trusted his field officers. "Sir, we have a major threat that Galactic Command refuses to acknowledge. I'm sending you all our data. We need to quietly prepare our defenses." "Quietly?" "Yes, sir. The aliens think we're too primitive to understand real threats. Maybe it's time we let them keep thinking that while we get ready for something they can't imagine." General Carter was silent for a long moment. "Send me everything, Captain. If the galaxy won't protect humanity, then humanity will protect itself." As Jake compiled the data to send to Earth, he looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there in the dark, ancient things were waking up, things that had slept for millions of years and were now hungry. The galaxy's superior species were too proud to listen to human warnings. But humans had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and worse. They had learned to be patient, to plan, and to fight smart when fighting hard wasn't enough. If the galaxy wouldn't listen to their warnings, maybe they would listen to their actions. The warning signs were clear to anyone willing to see them. Unfortunately, the only ones willing to see were the species everyone else considered too primitive to matter. Jake smiled grimly. Sometimes being underestimated was the best advantage of all. Ambassador Kate Johnson walked to the grand halls of the Galactic Assembly Building on Centauri Prime. The building was enormous, designed to make smaller species feel insignificant. Tall alien delegates moved past her without acknowledgement. To them, she was just another representative from a primitive world. Kate carried a data pad filled with evidence that could save the galaxy. Colony disappearance patterns, energy readings, survivor testimony, and Dr. Ross's research about ancient threats. She had requested this emergency session 3 weeks ago. Today, finally, they would listen. The assembly chamber was a massive circular room with seats for representatives from 47 different species. Kate stood at the small podium in the center, looking up at hundreds of alien faces. Most looked bored. Some were clearly annoyed that their time was being wasted by a human. "Honored delegates," Kate began, "I come before you today with evidence of a threat to all life in this galaxy." A few delegates laughed. The Vorthan representative, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms, spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "The human wants to tell us about galactic threats." How amusing. Kate ignored the insult and activated her holographic display. Images of the missing colonies appeared above the podium. 23 human colonies have vanished in the past 2 months. Over 3 million people, gone without a trace. Human colonies are small and poorly defended, said the Altarian delegate. Pirates or equipment failures. Nothing unusual. These were not pirate attacks, Kate said firmly. She showed the energy readings from the Montana. These readings show technology beyond anything in our databases. Something is draining entire star systems of energy. The Zephyrian Supreme Counselor Velneth leaned forward. She was an elegant creature with silver skin and large black eyes. Ambassador Johnson, your species has been in space for barely 2 centuries. You lack the experience to interpret such readings properly. Then explain this, Kate said, showing the survivor's testimony. She played Chris Davis's recorded words about the old ones coming back. The chamber erupted in laughter. The Vorthan delegate stood up. One traumatized human talking about monsters? This is your evidence? Humans are known for their active imaginations and primitive fears. Kate felt her face burn with anger, but she kept her voice steady. Dr. Amy Ross has found patterns in your own historical records. Similar disappearances happened 3 million years ago. Dr. Ross is a human scientist. Counselor Velneth said dismissively, humans cannot properly understand records from advanced civilizations. You misinterpret data because your minds are not sophisticated enough. What if we're right? Kate asked desperately. What if something ancient is waking up? What if your pride is blinding you to a real threat? The chamber fell silent. Then the Altarian delegate began to clap, slowly, mockingly. Others joined in. Kate stood there as hundreds of alien beings applauded her performance like it was entertainment. The Assembly appreciates human concern, Counselor Velneth said when the clapping stopped. But we cannot make galactic policy based on primitive fears. The Galactic Fleet protects all member worlds. Return Earth and tell your people they are safe. Kate gathered her data pad and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, she heard delegates already moving on to their next business. Her evidence of an ancient threat was dismissed without serious consideration. On Earth, Colonel Sam Wright was examining the wreckage of another colony ship. The Yellowstone had been found drifting near the asteroid belt, completely empty like all the others. But this time, Wright's technical team had found something the aliens missed. Show me the security footage again, Wright told his technician, Sergeant Bill Murphy. They watched the grainy video from the ship's internal cameras. Everything looked normal until the lights flickered. Then the shadows on the walls began to move wrong. They stretched and flowed like liquid. People on the ship stopped what they were doing and stared at the shadows with blank expressions. Watch this part, Murphy said, pointing at the screen. The people don't run. They don't fight. They just stand there like they're waiting. The shadows grew darker and seemed to reach out toward the crew. One by one, the people dissolved into the darkness. Not violently, peacefully, like they wanted to join with whatever was in the shadows. What the hell is that? Wright muttered. I ran the footage through every database we have, Murphy said. There's no match for anything like this. But, sir, look at this energy signature from the ship's sensors just before the crew disappeared. Wright studied the readings. The energy pattern was unlike anything in human or alien databases. It seemed to pulse with its own rhythm, like a heartbeat, a very slow, very old heartbeat. Get this to General Carter immediately, Wright ordered, and prepare a full report for Admiral Brooks. Wright's secure communication to General Carter was intercepted by Galactic Command monitoring systems. Admiral Kextar reviewed the report and sent an immediate message to Earth Military Command. General Carter, the message read, your forces will cease spreading panic among member species. The Galactic Fleet has investigated these so-called disappearances. They are natural phenomena misinterpreted by human inexperience. Any further fear-mongering will result in economic sanctions against Earth. General Carter read the message in his office at Earth Defense Headquarters. He was a veteran of 3 interplanetary conflicts and had dealt with alien politics for decades. He knew when he was being dismissed because of species prejudice. Colonel Wright, he said into his communicator, how many of our people believe the official story? None of them, sir. Everyone who's seen the evidence knows we're dealing with something dangerous. Good. Admiral Brooks, are you on this channel? Yes, sir, came Admiral Helen Brooks's voice from the lunar shipyards. Helen, How quickly can we prepare our fleet without making it obvious to Galactic Command observers? If we're careful, maybe 6 weeks. But, sir, the Galactic Treaty requires us to report any military buildup, not of its routine maintenance and training exercises. Carter said with a slight smile, start with repairs on all ships, then extended training maneuvers in the outer system. Make it look normal. Sir, Wright interjected, what about the colonies? People are getting scared. They want protection. We'll protect them, Carter said, but quietly. The galaxy thinks humans are too primitive to understand real threats. Maybe it's time we stop trying to convince them otherwise. Meanwhile, Ambassador Johnson had returned to Earth and met with President Charles Adams in the White House. She reported on her complete failure at the Galactic Assembly. They wouldn't listen to any of it, she said, sitting across from the president's desk. 47 different species, and not one took us seriously. They think we're making up stories because we're frightened primitives. President Adams was a calm man who had led Earth through several crises. Kate, what's your honest assessment? Are we wrong? Could this be natural phenomena that we're misunderstanding? Kate thought about the evidence she had seen. The energy readings, the empty ships, Chris Davis's terrified testimony, Dr. Ross's historical research. No, sir. Something is out there. Something old and hungry, and it's getting closer to populated systems. Then we prepare alone, Adams said. I'm authorizing a classified defense initiative. We'll call it Project Deadfall. What kind of project? Adams looked out his window at the peaceful Earth sky. The kind that makes our enemies think we're helpless right up until the moment we destroy them. If the galaxy won't take human warnings seriously, maybe they'll take human action seriously. That evening, Dr. Nina Clark received a call at her research laboratory. Dr. Clark was Earth's leading expert on quantum physics and had been working on theoretical weapons for the past 5 years. Dr. Clark, this is President Adams. I need you to join a classified project immediately. How quickly can you turn your quantum resonance theories into practical applications? Dr. Clark looked at her research notes. She had been developing ways to disrupt energy patterns at the quantum level. The applications could be incredible, but also incredibly dangerous. Mr. President, if my theories are correct, I could build devices that disrupt any energy-based life form, but the range would be limited, and they would need to be very close to the target. How close? Close enough to touch, sir. Adams was quiet for a moment. Dr. Clark, what if we could make the targets come to us? That would change everything, sir. But it would be risky. We'd have to appear completely defenseless to draw them in. Doctor, sometimes the best trap is the one that looks like defeat. As Earth's leaders made their secret plans, the galaxy continued to ignore human warnings. More colonies disappeared every week, but Galactic Command reported them as equipment failures or pirate attacks. The superior alien species refused to admit that their primitive human subjects might understand a threat they missed. In the dark spaces between stars, ancient things stirred in their long sleep. They sensed life spreading through the galaxy. Warm, bright, delicious life. Soon, they would wake fully and feed again, just as they had millions of years ago. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the species you dismiss as primitive are the ones who remember how to fight for survival. Dr. Amy Ross stood in the ancient ruins on Mars, brushing red dust from stone carvings that were older than complex life on Earth. The archaeological team had been digging here for 3 weeks, following energy readings similar to those found at the disappeared colonies. What they discovered changed everything. Dr. Ross, you need to see this, called Ben Taylor, the team's lead archaeologist. He was crouched beside a massive stone wall covered in symbols. These markings aren't random. They're telling a story. Amy walked over, her boots crunching on the ancient Martian soil. The symbols were carved deep into the stone and filled with a metal that still gleamed after millions of years. As she studied them, her blood grew cold. Ben, do you see this pattern here? She pointed to a series of spiral symbols surrounded by smaller marks. These spirals represent galaxies, and these smaller marks, stars, Ben finished. But look, some of the stars are crossed out, like they've been consumed. Amy pulled out her scanner and ran it over the wall. The metal filling the carvings gave off the same energy signature they had found on the empty colony ships. This isn't just a story, Ben. It's a warning. The team spent the next week translating the ancient symbols. The message was terrifying in its simplicity. Millions of years ago, beings called the Devourers had swept through this galaxy, consuming entire star systems. They fed on energy, matter, and life itself. When they had eaten everything, they went to sleep, waiting for new life to grow so they could feed again. According to this, Amy told General Carter during their video conference, the Devourers sleep for about 3 million years between feeding cycles. The last time they were active was 3 million years ago. Carter finished when those other colonies disappeared from the galactic records. Yes, and sir, there's something else. The carvings show that previous civilizations tried to fight the Devourers with conventional weapons. It didn't work. The Devourers absorbed the energy from their weapons and grew stronger. Carter leaned forward on the screen. What stopped them before? They didn't stop. They finished feeding and went back to sleep. But the carvings mentioned something called the Great Trap. That was never completed. A weapon designed by the last civilization before they were consumed. Meanwhile, on Centauri Prime, the Zephyr High Command was receiving reports they didn't want to believe. 3 more member worlds had lost all contact with their outer colonies. The Vorthan Empire reported strange energy readings near their border systems. The Altarian fleet had detected massive objects moving through deep space. Supreme Counselor Velneth called an emergency meeting with Admiral Kextar and the other military leaders. They gathered in a secure chamber beneath the capital city. Admiral, what is the status of our Outer Rim patrols? Velneth asked. Kextar's expression was troubled. Counselor, we've lost contact with 12 patrol ships in the past week. Their distress beacons simply stopped transmitting. Equipment failures? That's what we assumed. But Kextar hesitated. Counselor, some of my officers are saying the disappearances match the patterns the human ambassador described. Velneth's large black eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting we take human fears seriously? I'm suggesting we investigate these disappearances ourselves instead of dismissing them. Absolutely not. The Galactic Council will not show weakness by appearing to panic over human superstitions. Double our patrols and order all ships to maintain regular contact. The order went out across the galactic fleet. More ships were sent to patrol the areas where colonies and vessels had disappeared. Within days, half of those ships also went silent. On Earth, President Adams met with Dr. Nina Clark in a secure underground facility. Project Deadfall was taking shape, but it required decisions that would put all of humanity at risk. Show me the weapon, Adams said. Dr. Clark led him to a chamber containing a device the size of a small building. It hummed with barely contained energy and was covered in warning signs. This is a quantum resonance disruptor, she explained. It creates a feedback loop in energy-based entities, causing them to literally tear themselves apart at the molecular level. How many of these do we need to protect Earth? Mr. President, this one device could disrupt energy patterns across the entire solar system. But there's a problem. The Devourers would have to be very close before we could activate it. And once we do, the effect spreads through any connected consciousness. Admiral Helen Brooks stood on the bridge of the battleship Independence, watching her own ships destroy themselves. It was the hardest thing she had ever done as a military officer, but it was necessary for the greatest deception in human history. Fire the charges, she ordered quietly. The old cruiser Portland exploded in brilliant orange flames. Pieces of the ship scattered across space, creating a debris field that would convince any observer that Earth's fleet was falling apart. Similar explosions lit up the darkness as other obsolete vessels were sacrificed to maintain the illusion. Admiral, the galactic observers are recording everything, reported Captain Lisa Martinez from the communication station. They seem satisfied that we're following the disarmament orders. Brooks nodded. The Galactic Command had ordered all human military forces to reduce their excessive weapons after Earth's warnings about ancient threats were dismissed. They wanted humanity to know its place as a junior member of galactic civilization. What they didn't know was that the ships being destroyed were empty hulks filled with explosives. The real fleet was hidden in the asteroid belt, disguised as mining operations and scientific research stations. Status report on Operation Looking Glass. Brooks requested. All mirror sites are operational. Admiral. Every destroyed ship has been replaced by a hidden vessel with identical specifications. The Beacon-class cruisers are now disguised as asteroid processing plants. The Storm-class destroyers appear to be deep space telescopes. Brooks allowed herself a small smile. Looking Glass was the most ambitious camouflage operation in military history. For every ship they appeared to lose, a better one took its place in hidden locations throughout the solar system. Captain Jake Morrison watched the Portland's destruction from his new command, the Prairie Wind. To any outside observer, it looked like a simple civilian transport vessel designed to carry refugees. In reality, it was the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. "Sir, the external camouflage is holding perfectly," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Dan Carter. "Long-range sensors read us as an unarmed passenger liner with basic life support systems. And our actual capabilities? Full stealth systems, quantum torpedo launchers, plasma cannon arrays, and experimental energy shields. Plus, we're carrying 50 smaller fighters in disguised cargo bays." Morrison nodded. The Prairie Wind was one of 12 vessels designed to look harmless while carrying enough firepower to level a planet. They would be humanity's hidden sword when the time came to fight. On Earth, General Paul Carter was conducting what appeared to be a military disaster. Base after base was being shut down due to budget cuts. Weapon stockpiles were being destroyed to comply with galactic disarmament treaties. Thousands of soldiers were being discharged from service. None of it was real. "General, the Vorthen inspection team just finished reviewing our Columbus base," reported Colonel Wright. "They confirmed that our main arsenal has been completely destroyed." "Good. And the real status? Every weapon has been moved to underground facilities. The base appears abandoned, but it's actually more heavily defended than ever. We have similar setups at 47 locations worldwide." Carter looked at the tactical display, showing Earth's defenseless state. To alien observers, humanity appeared to be following galactic law by dismantling their military. In reality, they were creating the most sophisticated defensive network in the galaxy. "What about the refugee operations?" "Better than expected, sir. Ambassador Johnson has convinced over 200 species to evacuate their endangered populations to Earth. They think we're offering sanctuary out of desperation." The refugee operation was the centerpiece of Earth's deception. Every day, hundreds of ships arrived carrying civilians from threatened worlds. The orbital stations around Earth were packed with over 50 million refugees from across the galaxy. To any predator species, Earth now looked like the ultimate feeding ground. Ambassador Kate Johnson was playing her role perfectly at the Galactic Assembly. She appeared before the Council every week, begging for protection and offering Earth as a sanctuary for displaced populations. "Honored delegates," she said, her voice carefully modulated to sound desperate. "Earth offers safe harbor to all refugees from the Outer Rim disasters. Our orbital facilities can house millions of beings in safety." Supreme Counselor Velneth looked down at her with what might have been pity. "Ambassador Johnson, Earth's generosity is noted. However, concentrating so many refugees in one system may not be wise. With respect, Counselor, Earth is far from the affected regions. We have strong defensive systems and—" The Vorthen delegate interrupted with laughter. "Strong defensive systems? Ambassador, we've just confirmed that Earth has dismantled most of its military capabilities. You're offering refugees protection with obsolete weapons and civilian ships." Kate forced tears into her eyes. "It's all we have. Please, we're trying to help. The outer colonies are facing some kind of natural disaster that's destroying entire systems. These people need somewhere safe." "Natural disaster, yes," Velneth said dismissively. "Stellar phenomena that humans misinterpret as monsters. Very well. Earth may continue accepting refugees, but do not expect galactic fleet protection if you cannot adequately defend them." Kate bowed her head in apparent defeat. "Thank you, Counselor. Earth will do its best with what resources we have." As she left the assembly, Kate smiled grimly. The galaxy was convinced that humanity was weak, desperate, and putting all their eggs in one very vulnerable basket. Perfect. Dr. Nina Clark was making the final adjustments to the quantum resonance network. Hidden throughout the solar system, nodes disguised as mining equipment and research stations were being connected into the most powerful weapon ever conceived. Dr. Clark, President Adams said during his daily briefing, "How much longer until the network is complete?" 2 more weeks, sir. Every major asteroid between Mars and Jupiter now contains a resonance node. When activated, they'll create a quantum feedback loop that covers the entire inner solar system. And the Devourers will have to be inside that area for the weapon to work? Yes, sir. But based on their behavior patterns, they'll want to get close anyway. They feed on life energy, and we're offering them the largest concentration of life in galactic history. Adams studied the tactical displays. Earth's solar system now contained 57 million refugees, making it the most populated system in known space. To the Devourers, it would be irresistible. What about civilian casualties when we activate the weapon? The resonance effect only targets energy-based entities like the Devourers. All biological life forms will be unaffected. In fact, the energy disruption should protect everyone inside the field. In deep space, more Devourer scouts were awakening and spreading across the galaxy. They consumed 12 star systems and were growing stronger with each feeding. Their collective consciousness was beginning to focus on the strongest life signals in the galaxy. Earth's solar system blazed like a beacon in their ancient senses. So much life gathered in one place. So many different species and energy patterns. It would be the greatest feast in millions of years. The main Devourer swarm began moving toward human space. They moved slowly, savoring the anticipation. Easy prey was always more delicious when you took time to appreciate it. Colonel Wright was overseeing the final preparations at his hidden command center, inside what appeared to be a routine mining asteroid. Banks of computers monitored every Devourer movement while maintaining the illusion that Earth was helpless. "Colonel, we're tracking 17 Devourer entities moving toward the core systems," reported Sergeant Murphy. "Based on their speed, they'll reach the outer solar system in 6 weeks. Perfect timing. By then, every refugee ship in the galaxy will be here, and our resonance network will be fully operational. Sir, are we sure this will work? We're betting the entire galaxy on one weapon." Wright looked at the tactical display, showing Earth surrounded by what appeared to be defenseless refugee ships. In reality, many of those ships contained hidden weapon systems and volunteer crews ready to fight. Humanity had turned its entire solar system into a trap designed to look like a disaster. "Sergeant, sometimes the best way to win a war is to make your enemy think they've already won." Captain Morrison received his final briefing aboard the Prairie Wind. Around him, what looked like a simple refugee transport was actually preparing for the most important battle in galactic history. All units maintain civilian appearances until activation, he transmitted to the hidden fleet. "Remember, we need the Devourers to commit their entire force before we reveal our true nature." "Sir," Lieutenant Carter asked quietly, "what if they don't fall for it?" Morrison looked out at the refugee ships surrounding Earth, millions of beings who trusted humanity to protect them, while the galaxy's great powers dismissed Earth as too primitive to matter. "They'll fall for it, Lieutenant. Predators always underestimate their prey. The galaxy has been doing it to humanity for centuries. Time to show them why that's a mistake." In the hidden chambers beneath Earth's surface, President Adams made final preparations for humanity's greatest gamble. They had convinced the galaxy that Earth was weak and desperate. They had gathered millions of refugees into what appeared to be an indefensible position. They had built the ultimate weapon while appearing to disarm completely. Now they would find out if being underestimated was humanity's greatest strength or its final mistake. The ancient hunger was coming, drawn by the scent of the largest gathering of life in galactic history. Soon, Earth would spring the ultimate trap, and the galaxy would learn that sometimes the most dangerous species is the one everyone thinks is harmless. The first reports came from the Vorthan Empire. Their proud fleet of 200 warships had encountered something impossible near the Kepler system. Admiral Vextor's final transmission was brief and terrifying. "Command, We are engaging unknown entities. They appear to be absorbing our weapons' fire. Request immediate. The signal ended in static. Within hours, the entire Kepler system went dark. For planets with a combined population of 6 billion people, simply stop responding to all communications. Long-range sensors showed the system's star flickering and dimming, as if something was draining its energy. On Centauri Prime, Supreme Counselor Velness stared at the tactical displays in growing horror. Red zones marked systems that had gone silent spread across the galaxy map, like an infection. Dozens of worlds. Hundreds of millions of people. All gone in a matter of days. "How is this possible?" she whispered to Admiral Kextar. "Our fleets are the most advanced in the galaxy. Our weapons can destroy planets." Kextar's hand shook as he pointed to the latest reports. "Counselor, every time our ships engage these entities, they grow stronger. They're absorbing our energy weapons and using them to become larger. The more we fight them, the more powerful they become." The Altarian home system was next. Admiral Thexkar's replacement, Admiral Vexlin, commanded the largest battle fleet in galactic history. 300 ships equipped with the most devastating weapons known to science waited in formation around the twin worlds of Altaria Prime and Altaria Secondary. All ships. Target the lead entity. Vexlin ordered as the first Devourer scout entered sensor range. The creature was massive, easily the size of a space station, and it moved through space like it was swimming through water. The combined firepower of 300 ships struck the Devourer simultaneously. Plasma cannons, particle beams, quantum torpedoes, and antimatter missiles lit up space in the greatest display of military might the galaxy had ever seen. The Devourer absorbed everything and doubled in size. "Impossible!" Vexlin breathed as his sensors showed the entity now measuring 2 kilometers across. "All ships, fall back to defensive positions." But the Devourer wasn't alone. Dozens more emerged from the darkness between stars, each one as large as the first. They moved toward the Altarian fleet with terrible purpose. Vexlin's final transmission reached Galactic Command 12 hours later. It was a recording from his ship's bridge as the Devourers surrounded his fleet. "They're not attacking us," Vexlin said in confusion. "They're just reaching out. My crew, they're not fighting. They're walking toward the shadows voluntarily. I can feel it too. The pull. It's so peaceful, so welcoming. Why did we ever think this was wrong?" The recording ended as Vexlin himself walked into the darkness, his expression serene. The Altarian system, home to 12 billion people and the galaxy's most advanced technology, went silent. Panic spread through the Galactic Council. Species after species reported their outer colonies going dark. The Zephyrian Empire lost 43 worlds in 1 week. The Vorthan Federation saw entire sectors consumed by the spreading darkness. Supreme Counselor Velneth called an emergency session of the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from every surviving world gathered in the Great Chamber, their earlier arrogance replaced by terror. "We need to evacuate," declared the Rigelian ambassador. "Move all populations to the galactic core. Create a defensive perimeter." "With what ships?" demanded the Centaurian delegate. "These entities have destroyed every fleet that engaged them. They turn our own weapons against us." "What about the humans?" asked a small voice from the back. It was Ambassador Next to from the Tau Ceti colonies. "The humans warned us about this. They said ancient entities were awakening." The chamber fell silent. Every delegate remembered Ambassador Johnson's desperate pleas for the Assembly to take the threat seriously. They had laughed at her, called her people primitive and fearful. "The humans," Velneth said slowly, "their system is still intact. They've been accepting refugees from the affected regions because they're far from the danger zones." Admiral Kextar pointed out, "Their system is deep in the galactic backwater. These entities are focusing on the advanced civilizations first." Or, Next to said quietly, "The humans know something we don't." Admiral Kextar made a decision that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. He authorized a priority transmission to Earth, requesting immediate assistance from humanity's primitive defense forces. The message reached President Adams within hours. He read it twice, hardly believing the words on his screen. "They're asking for our help. he told General Carter and Admiral Brooks during their emergency meeting. The Zephyrian fleet want to coordinate with Earth's defense forces. After calling us primitives for decades, Brooks said grimly, "What's our response?" Adams looked at the latest intelligence reports. Devourer scouts were moving to the outer galaxy, consuming everything in their path. But they were following a pattern, spiraling inward toward the galactic core, toward the largest concentration of life signs, toward Earth. We maintain a deception. Adams decided. Tell them Earth will provide sanctuary, but that our defenses are limited. Keep them thinking we're weak. The response Adams sent to Admiral Kextar was carefully crafted to appear desperate and hopeful at the same time. Admiral Kextar, Earth mourns the losses your people have suffered. We offer our system as sanctuary for Zephyrian refugees and will coordinate our limited defense capabilities with any surviving galactic fleet elements. Our orbital facilities can house millions more evacuees. Please hurry. We fear these entities will eventually discover our location. When Kextar received the message, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, gratitude toward a species he had always considered inferior. "Admiral," his aide reported, "should we dispatch ships to Earth immediately?" "No," Kextar said, studying the tactical situation. "If these entities are as intelligent as they appear, leading them directly to Earth would doom the refugees already there. We'll fight a delaying action to give the humans more time to prepare their defenses." What Kextar didn't know was that his delaying action was exactly what Earth wanted. Every day the Galactic Fleet bought them was another day to fine-tune their trap. Captain Jake Morrison received updates on the galactic situation from his disguised warship Prairie Wind. Around him, Earth's solar system buzzed with activity as refugee ships arrived daily. The orbital stations were packed beyond capacity with survivors from dozens of worlds. "Sir, we now have 57 million refugees in the system," reported Lieutenant Carter. "The Devourers are bound to detect this concentration of life." "That's the idea, Lieutenant. Dr. Clark, status on the Resonance Network." Dr. Nina Clark's voice came through the communications system from her hidden command center. "All nodes are online and synchronized, Captain. We can activate the quantum field at any time. But remember, the Devourers need to be inside the inner solar system for maximum effect." Morrison looked at the sensor displays showing refugee ships throughout human space. Millions of beings who trusted humanity to protect them. While the galaxy survivors desperately hoped Earth's primitive defenses could somehow succeed where advanced fleets had failed. "Dr. Clark, based on Devourer behavior patterns, how many entities do you estimate will attack Earth directly?" "Captain, based on the life sign concentration in our system, I estimate the entire remaining swarm will come here. We're offering them the largest feeding opportunity they've encountered in millions of years." Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. If their plan failed, Earth wouldn't just lose, the galaxy would lose its last hope. "All units, maintain camouflage positions," he ordered. "Let them think we're helpless right until the moment we spring the trap." In deep space, the Devourer swarm had finished consuming the Outer Rim civilizations. Dozens of the ancient entities now moved in coordinated formation toward the galactic core. They had fed well, growing larger and more powerful with each system they consumed. Their collective consciousness detected the massive life signal emanating from the Sol system. So much diversity, so many different species gathered in one location. It would be a feast beyond imagination. The swarm changed course, moving directly toward Earth. Behind them, they left empty star systems drained of all energy and life. Ahead of them lay what appeared to be the ultimate prize, a defenseless system packed with refugees, and protected only by a primitive species that had never fought anything more dangerous than pirates. Admiral Kextar made his final stand at the Rigel system, hoping to buy Earth more time. His remaining ships engaged the Devourer scouts in a desperate battle that he knew he couldn't win. "Earth Defense Command, this is Admiral Kextar," he transmitted as the shadows closed around his fleet. "The main swarm is heading directly for your system. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. I'm sorry we didn't listen to your warnings. Protect the refugees. Show the galaxy that humans are better than we deserved. The transmission ended as the Rigel system joined the growing list of dead worlds. On Earth, President Adams received the final warning and activated humanity's greatest deception. To the approaching devourers, Earth would look like a helpless world packed with delicious refugees and offended by obsolete weapons. In reality, it was the ultimate trap, designed by the galaxy's most underestimated species, to destroy the greatest threat in cosmic history. The storm was coming, and Earth was ready to meet it. They came from the darkness like nightmares made real. Captain Jake Morrison watched on his sensors as a devourer swarm entered the outer edge of the solar system. Hundreds of them, each one the size of a battleship, and growing larger as they fed on the energy of space itself. "My God!" whispered Lieutenant Carter from the tactical station aboard the disguised Prairie Wind. "There are so many of them." Morrison forced his voice to remain steady. "Remember our mission, Lieutenant. We're supposed to be a helpless refugee transport. Act scared." It wasn't hard to act scared. Even knowing about Earth's hidden defenses, Morrison felt terror at the sight of the ancient entities approaching their system. The devourers moved through space like living shadows, their biomechanical forms shifting and flowing in ways that hurt to look at directly. On Earth, President Adams watched the tactical displays in the hidden command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. General Carter stood beside him, his face grim as sensor readings showed the true size of the approaching threat. "Mr. President, we count over 300 individual entities," Carter reported. "Each one is approximately 2 kilometers long and appears to be composed of both organic and mechanical components. They're moving in formation toward the inner system." "Are they taking the bait?" "Yes, sir. They're ignoring our outer defense platforms completely and heading straight for the orbital refugee stations." "Just like we hoped." Adams nodded. The refugee stations were packed with 57 million beings from across the galaxy. To the devourers, it must look like the greatest feeding opportunity in cosmic history. They would never suspect that Earth had deliberately gathered so much life in one place as bait for a trap. Admiral Helen Brooks commanded the hidden fleet from her position inside a disguised asteroid. Her ships were scattered throughout the inner system, camouflaged as mining operations, research stations, and debris fields. Each vessel was crewed by volunteers who understood they might not survive the coming battle. "Admiral, the devourers have passed the outer perimeter," reported Captain Martinez from the stealth cruiser Denver. "They're moving directly toward Earth orbit just as predicted. Maintain camouflage until I give the word," Brooks ordered. "Let them get close. Let them think they've won." The devourers entered Earth's orbital space like a plague of living darkness. They moved slowly, savoring the approach to their feast. The massive refugee stations hung in space like fruit on a tree, packed with millions of terrified beings from across the galaxy. On Refugee Station Alpha, Ambassador Kate Johnson helped coordinate the evacuation of non-essential personnel to the planet's surface. She maintained her role as a desperate human diplomat, even as the ancient nightmares approached. "All civilians to the emergency shuttles," she announced over the station's communication system. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." What she didn't announce was that the emergency shuttles were actually disguised weapon platforms, and the civilians being evacuated included thousands of human military personnel in disguise. The lead devourer reached the first orbital station and extended tendrils of living shadow toward the hull. The station's defense systems activated automatically, firing plasma cannons and particle beams at the approaching entity. The devourer absorbed the energy and grew larger. This was exactly what Earth had expected. The station's weapons were deliberately obsolete models designed to feed the devourer's growth without actually threatening it. Meanwhile, the station's real defense systems remained hidden and inactive. Aboard the Prairie Wind, Morrison watched the first contact between the devourers and Earth's defenses. To any observer, it looked like humanity's pathetic weapons were completely ineffective against the ancient threat. "Sir, the refugees are panicking," Carter reported as emergency signals flooded their communications array. "They think Earth's defenses have already failed." "Let them think that," Morrison replied quietly. "Fear will make this more convincing." More devourers approached the orbital stations, drawn by the massive concentration of life signs. They surrounded the refugee platforms like sharks around a bleeding whale, extending their shadowy tendrils to begin the feeding process. But something was wrong. The Devourers sensed an unusual organization to the life signs around Earth. Instead of random panic, there was an underlying pattern of coordination that suggested intelligence and planning. The lead Devourer paused in its feeding to analyze the situation more carefully. Its ancient consciousness had survived for millions of years by being cautious with potential prey. This system felt different from the others they had consumed. In the hidden command center, Dr. Nina Clark monitored the quantum resonance network that was now fully charged and ready to activate. The network extended throughout the inner solar system, with nodes hidden on every major asteroid and moon. Dr. Clark, what's their current position? President Adams asked. Perfect, sir. Over 200 entities are now within the resonance field. If we activate now, the quantum feedback should disrupt their entire collective consciousness. Wait, Adams said, studying the tactical display. There are still more coming. We need to get as many as possible inside the trap before we spring it. Colonel Wright was positioned at the backup command center on Luna, disguised as a mining operation. His teams had spent months preparing hidden weapon caches throughout the system, all designed to activate simultaneously when the trap was sprung. Colonel, all weapon platforms report ready, Sergeant Murphy announced. The moment Dr. Clark activates a resonance field, we can reveal our true defensive capabilities. Wright watched through his periscope as more Devourers entered Earth orbit. The ancient entities were completely focused on the refugee stations, believing they had found easy prey gathered conveniently in one location. Hold position, Wright ordered. Let them think they're winning. The largest refugee station, Orbital Platform Gamma, was surrounded by dozens of Devourers. The station appeared defenseless as the entities began draining its energy systems. Inside, Ambassador Johnson coordinated what looked like a desperate evacuation, but was actually the final phase of positioning human military assets. All units, implement Protocol 7. She transmitted on a coded channel. Repeat, Protocol 7 is now active. Protocol 7 was a signal to activate hidden weapon systems throughout the station while maintaining the appearance of civilian panic. What looked like refugee shuttles launching from the station were actually fighter squadrons in disguise. The trap was nearly complete. The Devourers had committed their entire swarm to what they believed was an easy feeding on helpless refugees. They were packed into Earth's inner system, surrounded by hidden weapons they couldn't detect, and positioned perfectly within the quantum resonance field. But the lead Devourer was beginning to understand that something was wrong. The life signs in the system were too organized, too coordinated for genuine panic. The ancient entity began to pull back from the refugee stations, sending warning signals to the rest of the swarm. President Adams saw the tactical shift immediately. They're getting suspicious. Dr. Clark, are we ready? Yes, sir. All nodes are charged and synchronized. But if they start to retreat, they won't get the chance, Adams said grimly. General Carter, give the activation order. Carter opened the secure communication channel to all hidden positions throughout the solar system. All units, this is command. Operation Deadfall is authorized. Repeat, Deadfall is authorized. Show them who we really are. The moment of deception was over. Earth's greatest gamble was about to be decided. For months, humanity had appeared weak and helpless, gathering refugees into what looked like an indefensible position. The galaxy's most powerful fleets had been destroyed by the Devourers, proving that conventional weapons were useless. But Earth had never planned to fight conventionally. The Devourers found themselves in the center of the most elaborate trap in galactic history, surrounded by hidden weapons they had never encountered and caught within a quantum field designed to turn their own collective consciousness against them. The ancient hunters had finally encountered prey that hunted back. Captain Morrison felt his heart pounding as he waited for the activation signal. Around him, his crew prepared to drop their civilian disguise and reveal the Prairie Wind's true nature as humanity's most advanced warship. Sir, activation signal confirmed, Carter reported with barely contained excitement. All units are going active. Morrison smiled grimly and opened a channel to all hidden human forces throughout the solar system. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison, drop camouflage. Show these things what happens when you threaten Earth. The trap was about to close, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had always been making their enemies underestimate them right up until the moment they struck back. The moment Dr. Nina Clark activated the quantum resonance network, the entire solar system lit up with invisible energy. Hidden nodes throughout the asteroid belt on Luna, Mars, and embedded in the orbital stations began generating a harmonic frequency that existed at the quantum level reality itself. The effect on the Devourers was immediate and devastating. The ancient entities had shared a collective consciousness for millions of years, their individual minds linked across vast distances through quantum entanglement. This connection had been their greatest strength, allowing them to coordinate perfectly across entire galaxies. Now it became their greatest weakness. Network activation confirmed. Clark reported from her hidden command center. Quantum resonance is spreading to the Devourer collective at light speed. The feedback loop is building. The lead Devourer, still positioned near orbital platform Gamma, suddenly convulsed as foreign energy patterns invaded its consciousness. The resonance frequency was designed to create chaos in quantum-linked entities, turn their shared thoughts into a storm of conflicting signals. But the effect didn't stop with the Devourers in Earth system. Every entity that had ever fed in the Sol system now carried quantum markers that linked them to the network. As the resonance field activated, it sent pulses of disruptive energy through the quantum connections that bound the entire Devourer species together. Across the galaxy, Devourer entities that had been feeding on distant worlds suddenly stopped their consumption and began writhing in confusion. The collective consciousness that had guided them for eons was tearing itself apart from within. Captain Morrison felt the prairie wind shake as the camouflaged transport ship revealed its true nature. External panels fell away to expose advanced weapon systems that had been hidden for months. Around him, asteroids throughout the belt were dropping their disguises and revealing themselves as heavily armed battle platforms. All weapons online. Lieutenant Carter reported with fierce satisfaction. "Sir, the Devourers are there just floating there, like they can't coordinate anymore." Morrison studied his tactical display. The massive entities that had been moving in perfect formation minutes earlier were now drifting randomly through space. Some were actually attacking each other as the quantum feedback scrambled their shared consciousness. "Target the nearest entity," Morrison ordered. "Let's see how they handle human weapons when they can't absorb the energy." The prairie wind fired its first plasma cannon burst at a Devourer that was struggling to maintain its biomechanical cohesion. Instead of absorbing the energy as they had done with every other weapon in the galaxy, the entity's disrupted systems couldn't process the incoming power. The plasma tore through its hull like conventional armor. The Devourer died with what sounded like a scream that echoed across multiple dimensions. Admiral Helen Brooks commanded the hidden fleet as they revealed themselves throughout the inner system. What had appeared to be mining equipment and research stations suddenly transformed into the most advanced warships humanity had ever built. "All units, engage at will." Brooks transmitted. "Remember, aim for the quantum disruption points that Dr. Clark identified. These things can't adapt if they can't think straight." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. For millions of years, the Devourers have been unstoppable because they could absorb energy-based attacks and coordinate perfectly through their shared consciousness. But Earth's trap had turned both advantages into crippling weaknesses. The quantum resonance field prevented the entities from coordinating their movements or sharing tactical information. Meanwhile, their disrupted quantum matrices couldn't absorb incoming energy, making them vulnerable to conventional weapons for the first time in eons. Colonel Wright activated the hidden defensive systems on Luna, revealing weapon platforms that had been disguised as mining equipment for months. Rail guns emerged from fake excavation sites, firing solid projectiles that the confused Devourers couldn't absorb or deflect. "Target-rich environment," Wright reported with grim satisfaction. "The entities near Luna are completely disoriented. They're firing at each other as much as they're firing at us." But the true genius of Earth's trap was still revealing itself. The quantum feedback wasn't just disrupting the Devourers in the Sol system. It was spreading through their entire species across the galaxy, carried by the quantum entanglement that had once been their greatest strength. Dr. Amy Ross monitored the expanding effect from her research station on Mars. Her screen showed energy signatures from across the galaxy as the quantum disruption propagated through the Devourer Collective. President Adams, the effect is spreading faster than we projected, she reported. I'm detecting quantum resonance cascades in the Vega system, Alteria, even the galactic core. Every Devourer entity in the galaxy is being affected simultaneously. Adams watched the tactical displays with amazement and growing hope. Dr. Ross, what's the extent of the disruption? Sir, their entire species appears to be in quantum shock. But there's something else. The resonance is activating dormant systems throughout the galaxy. Ancient technology that's been sleeping for millions of years is coming online. As the quantum field spread beyond the Devourer Collective, it began interacting with other quantum-based technologies throughout the galaxy. On dead worlds that had been consumed millions of years ago, defensive systems built by long-extinct civilizations suddenly activated. The galaxy had faced a Devourer threat before, and previous civilizations had built weapons designed to fight them. Those weapons had failed because they were used individually by separate species. But now, connected through Earth's quantum network, they formed a galaxy-spanning defense grid. Ancient weapon platforms around Alteria Prime came online for the first time in 3 million years, firing energy beams that the disrupted Devourers couldn't absorb. Automated defense systems in the Vega sector began targeting confused entities that had been feeding there for weeks. On the dead world of Kepler, 442b, where Earth's Colony 7 had been consumed, massive structures buried beneath the planet's surface suddenly activated. They had been built by the planet's original inhabitants as a last line of defense against the Devourers. Now, powered by Earth's quantum field, they struck back at the entities that had destroyed their creators. The battle raged throughout Earth's solar system as human forces engaged the trapped Devourers. Without their quantum coordination and energy absorption abilities, the ancient entities were revealed to be mortal after all. They fought with desperate fury, but they were fighting blind and confused against an enemy that had studied them for months. Captain Morrison's Prairie Wind engaged 3 Devourers simultaneously, using experimental weapons designed specifically to exploit the entity's quantum vulnerabilities. Each hit caused cascading failures in their biomechanical systems. Sir, they're trying to retreat, Carter reported. The surviving entities are attempting to leave the system. Not on my watch, Morrison replied. All units form a perimeter. Nothing leaves the system alive. But the Devourers weren't just trying to escape Earth. Across the galaxy, every surviving entity was attempting to flee to the dark spaces between galaxies, trying to escape the quantum network that was tearing their collective consciousness apart. They were too late. The resonance field had spread through their entire species, and ancient weapons were activating on every world they had ever touched. The galaxy itself was fighting back, coordinated by Earth's quantum network. Dr. Clark monitored the expanding battle from her command center, amazed by the scope of what humanity had unleashed. President Adams, the quantum cascade is beyond our control now. It's become self-sustaining and self-expanding. Every world the Devourers ever attacked is fighting back simultaneously. Are we winning? Adams asked. Sir, we're not just winning. We're ending them. The entire Devourer species is being systematically destroyed by the very civilizations they consumed. Their quantum links are carrying the resonance to every entity in the galaxy. The final phase of the battle began as the last Devourers in Earth's system made a coordinated attempt to break through the human perimeter. But they were no longer the unstoppable force that had consumed entire civilizations. They were confused, weakened, and facing weapons specifically designed to kill them. Admiral Brooks led the final assault, her hidden fleet revealing the full extent of humanity's secret preparations. Ships emerged from asteroid hiding places. Weapon platforms rose from the lunar surface, and the orbital stations dropped their refugee disguises to reveal massive defensive arrays. This is for every world you destroyed. Brooks transmitted on an open channel as her forces closed in on the remaining entities. This is for every civilization you consumed. This is for underestimating humanity. The last Devourer in Earth's system died as the quantum network completed its work. Across the galaxy, the ancient threat that had plagued countless civilizations for millions of years was finally ended. But Earth's trap had done more than destroy the Devourers. It had awakened the galaxy's own immune system. proving that when civilizations work together through advanced technology, no threat was truly unstoppable. The species that everyone had dismissed as primitive had just saved everyone by turning their greatest weakness into their ultimate strength. 3 months after the Devourer War ended, Ambassador Kate Johnson stood before the rebuilt Galactic Assembly on New Centauri Prime. The Great Chamber looked different now. Instead of arranged seating that emphasized hierarchy and species superiority, the delegates sat in a circle of equals. The beings who had once laughed at human warnings now listened with respectful attention as Kate presented Earth's proposal for a new galactic defense network. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying none of the desperate pleading that had characterized her earlier speeches. "Humanity proposes the establishment of a permanent early warning system to protect all member worlds from existential threats." Supreme Counselor Velneth, who had survived the Devourer attacks on Centauri Prime, nodded respectfully. "Ambassador Johnson, the Galactic Council recognizes Earth's leadership in this matter. Your species saved all of us. We are prepared to accept human guidance in galactic defense." The change in attitude was remarkable. Species that had dismissed humans as primitive now competed to offer Earth favorable trade agreements and military alliances. The Vorthan Empire, which had lost half its territory to the Devourers, formally requested human military advisors to help rebuild their defense forces. Kate smiled diplomatically. "The quantum resonance network that defeated the Devourers will be expanded to cover the entire galaxy. Dr. Nina Clark's team has designed permanent monitoring stations that can detect threats like the Devourers years before they become active." What she didn't mention was that every monitoring station will be controlled by human personnel, effectively making Earth the galaxy's early warning system. The species that had once been considered too primitive to understand galactic threats now held the keys to everyone's survival. Captain Jake Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, commanded the new galactic defense fleet from his flagship, the Defender of Earth. His fleet included ships from dozens of species, but the command structure was clearly human-dominated. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim monitoring stations," reported as Operations Officer Commander Lisa Stone. "All systems show normal readings. No sign of ancient threats or quantum anomalies." Morrison nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed human-built monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Each station was equipped with quantum resonance transmitters that could coordinate defensive actions across thousands of light years instantly. "Any word from the archaeological expeditions?" "Yes, sir. Dr. Ross's teams have located 17 more ancient defense installations. They're all being integrated into our network." Dr. Amy Ross had become the galaxy's leading expert on ancient civilizations and their defensive technologies. Her research teams were uncovering ruins on dozens of worlds, finding weapons and warning systems built by species that had faced the Devourers millions of years ago. "The pattern is clear," she reported to President Adams during their monthly briefing. "Every major civilization in galactic history eventually faced existential threats. The successful ones were those that learned to coordinate their defenses across multiple worlds and species." Adams looked at the reports from across the galaxy. Human colonies were being established on strategic worlds throughout the galactic community. What appeared to be civilian settlements were actually military observation posts, keeping watch for threats that might not emerge for millions of years. "Dr. Ross, what's your assessment of our long-term security situation?" "Mr. President, the galaxy is vast and ancient. The Devourers were just one threat among many. My research suggests there are other dormant dangers that could awaken in the future. Climate-altering organisms, reality-warping entities, machine intelligences that consume technological civilizations. And our preparations? We're building a galactic immune system. Sir, human-controlled monitoring stations, quantum communication networks, and hidden defensive platforms throughout inhabited space. When the next threat emerges, we'll be ready." General Paul Carter, now Supreme Commander Galactic Defense Forces, oversaw the most ambitious military project in cosmic history. Hidden throughout the galaxy, human teams were establishing secret bases disguised as research stations, mining operations, and civilian settlements. "The galaxy thinks we're helping them rebuild," Carter explained to his staff during a classified briefing. "What we're actually doing is positioning ourselves to defend against threats they can't imagine. The strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Earth offered assistance to every world that had suffered devourer attacks. Human engineers helped rebuild infrastructure, human scientists shared defensive technologies, and human colonists established cultural exchange settlements on strategic worlds. Within 5 years, humanity had a presence on every major world in the galaxy, all under the guise of helpful cooperation and peaceful expansion. Colonel Sam Wright, promoted to general, commanded a network of hidden installations that spanned hundreds of star systems. His forces included not just humans, but volunteers from every,